So we are on the second of our long journeys this summer. This time we're driving up to the bustling metropolis of Westlock, Alberta. And we thought we'd make a quick stop here in Innisfail, Alberta, just because it has an interesting charging station. As you can see, we're charging at this flow station here. And we don't really need a charge right now, but in this particular case, we get to charge for free. And the reason why is because this charger is hooked up to those solar panels behind it. There's a bit of a solar farm that runs back a little ways here, and I'll get a couple of shots of that if I can. So we thought we'd stop here, just try this out and see what it's like. If you happen to be driving up the north-south corridor between Calgary and Edmonton, and you stop in at Innisfail, you can charge for free here for now. They probably will start charging for it at some point in the future. But I thought it was interesting just because this is a sort of a cooperative setup where you can charge your car for free. It is only a 50 kilowatt charger. Everything on this trip will be a 50 kilowatt charger unless it's a level 2 charger. That is the fastest charge that you can get north of Calgary at this point. One of the problems with the infrastructure up this way, and we'll talk a little bit about that on this journey. For those who are not familiar with the area, this trip will take place mostly on Highway 2, also known as the QE2, named in honor of Queen Elizabeth. It's a north-south highway and runs about 700 kilometers starting at the U.S. border crossing near Carway and ending at Athabasca. It's a very busy highway, with the busiest parts handling about 150,000 cars a day. On this trip, we'll cover a little more than half the total distance of the highway. Calgary to Westlock is about 386 kilometers. As I mentioned, the charging infrastructure north of Calgary is pretty good, but not great. There are plenty of 50 kilowatt charging stations available on the trip, but the only one faster than that is at a Petro-Canada station just north of Calgary near Cross Iron Mills Mall. As of this recording, there's a total of 9 chargers between Calgary and Edmonton, and another 8 50 kilowatt chargers available within various parts of Edmonton. There are also several level 2 chargers along the route, but those are not great for road tripping unless you're stopping for an extended period of time. Calgary to Red Deer is the easiest part of the trip, with 50 kilowatt chargers available in Airdrie, Carstairs, Olds, and Innisfail, which is the one I showed you earlier. There are then multiple places to charge in Red Deer. After Red Deer is a 107 kilometer stretch between there and Leduc that has no fast chargers, so I'd recommend making sure you're topped up before hitting that stretch, especially in winter. Once you get north of Edmonton, there are literally no DC fast charging stations available. There is a level 2 station available in Athabasca, and there are 4 level 2 chargers in Fort McMurray, but the reality is that driving an electric car that far north at this time is basically impractical. Once we arrived in Westlock, we had about a 70% charge. We wanted to make sure we had at least 25% charge as a buffer to get back to Edmonton if needed. This left us with about 225 kilometers worth of range to drive around for the few days we were in town. There is a level 2 charger in Westlock, but based on the reviews of it on PlugShare, it's not been functional for years. We drove by it, and it's located outside the PV Mart store. When we were there, it was literally blocked by pallets of their inventory, so it appears they're in no hurry to get that charger working. If you're in this type of rural area and are desperate for a charge, one option to consider is campgrounds. They often have 240-volt plug-ins available for RVs that'll work fine with a portable charger. Additionally, if you know someone in the area that has a workshop, quite common on farms, they often have welding outlets that will also work. And you can always plug into a normal 120-volt outfit if needed as well, obviously. You aren't going to get much range, but it might get you enough to make it to the nearest fast charger. While in Westlock, we did take in the sights, which are, in full transparency, pretty limited. It's a pretty normal farming-based community with not a lot of activities for tourists. We did, however, visit the Westlock Pioneer Museum, and I can recommend stopping there for no other reason than to see the largest collection of old record players that I've ever seen anywhere. Okay, so we're on the last day of our Westlock, Alberta trip, and the car has done great, actually. My wife is doing the driving home. Well, Blue Cruise is doing most of the driving right now. And that's been really good on this trip. It's actually worked really well between Calgary and Edmonton. I worked a little bit outside the other side of Edmonton, not too much, but it was available for the first part of the trip. And now we're 208 kilometers away from home, and we stopped in Edmonton for a charge on the way back. By the time we were done lunch, we were at a 97% charge, so we're more than good to go for the rest of the way home. We'll have plenty of charge left when we get there. On the way up, we charged once in Edmonton, and that took us up to 98% on that particular charge. And we were able to get all the way up to Westlock and drive around in the time that we were up there, come back to Edmonton, and by the time we got back to the charger at the south end of Edmonton, we were at about 48% charge. We did stop at Londonderry Mall in the north side of Edmonton to try and charge there. We thought it'd be a more fun place to charge because, of course, you can hang around and take a look at stuff in the mall, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, that charger was down at the time, so we were not able to charge there. So we drove to the other end of town and charged on the same location that we did on the way up at the Canadian Tire there with the Flow Network chargers. The car performed really well in Westlock. We did go visit some folks at a more rural location where there's some gravel roads, and did notice that the car has a tendency to pick up some dust on the back, mostly thanks to the aerodynamics. So it's pretty dirty now. It'll need a wash when we get home. Overall, though, quite happy with it. No complaints at all. It's just as easy as driving a gas-powered car up in that part of the world with a little bit of range anxiety. So all in all, a pretty good trip, pretty uneventful. Lots of traffic. You'll have some views of some of that, but that is pretty normal for the weekend on the corridor between Calgary and Edmonton.